Hello, and welcome to Lore and Crime, a podcast where we dive into the shadowy depths of history, where true crime and chilling events inspire dark fictional tales that will keep you up at night. In this first episode, we're going back to the year 1689, during a brutal war between France and the German states in the Rhineland. But this isn't just a tale of conflict, it's one of legend, loss, and something far stranger. Atop the cliffs above the Rhine stands Schönburg Castle, where I spent a few days uncovering a haunting local story, the legend of the 7 virgins. 7 noble sisters who vanished one night and were never seen again. Some say they were cursed, others say the rocks jutting from the river below are their petrified remains. This is a story shaped by history, shadowed by lore, and begging to be retold. So let's get right into it and enjoy. The chill of that January afternoon of 1689 hung in the air as the boat slowly inched south along the Rhine River. Slowly, the town of Overwesel appeared on the west flank. It seemed almost deliberate how perfectly situated it was nestled between the 2 cliffs beyond the bend of the river. The ideal location for a fortified town. The mist clung to the river surface, obscuring the lower part of the town, but I could see a castle atop the cliff. Its dark silhouette a stark contrast against the gray sky. As we drew nearer, I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the morning air. The boat's wake lapped gently against the shore, and I found myself drawn to the narrow streets winding up the cliffside. What secrets lay hidden in those shadowy alleys? What sins had been committed behind those shuttered windows? I disembarked, my boots sinking into the muddy bank. The town loomed before me, both inviting and forbidding. I knew I should not linger here, that some half-remembered warning tugged at the edges of my mind. But against my good sense, I felt compelled to enter. What else could I do? I couldn't go back north. The city of Koblenz lay in ruin, the war still raged on, and I was not about to turn back now. Mainz further south was already under French occupation. That's where I was heading. Only half a day more down the Rhine, killed the Marshal of Boufflers. As I passed through one of the gates of the fortified walls, I made out several watchtowers manned by torchlights and shadows. On the other side of the wall, the weight of the misery was pressed down upon me. The cobblestone streets, worn smooth by countless footsteps, seemed to whisper of ancient sorrows. I pulled my coat tighter, though it did little to ward off the bone-deep chill that had settled within me. The few townspeople around moved about their business with a peculiar air of resignation. Their eyes were downcast, their movements furtive. When they did glance my way, it was with a mixture of suspicion and something that might have been pity. As I ventured deeper into the town, the mist from the river had followed me, clinging to my clothes and skin like a damp shroud. It muffled the sounds of the small port behind the wall, until all I could hear was the pounding of my heart. The distant chime of church bells rang out from the south, but my attention snagged on a ruined building jutting from the cliff. It sat there next to a darkened Gothic church. That must be the old monastery Captain Dietrich told me about. He said the monks would be able to help me with my endeavor, or at least be sympathetic with my cause. I set out towards the ruin. As I made my way there, the fog began to thin, revealing more of the town's grim visage. The air grew heavy with an acrid scent, a mixture of rotting wood and something far more sinister. I paused, my hand resting on the rough stone wall of a nearby building, as a gust of wind swept through the narrow streets. The fog parted like a curtain, unveiling a town square before me. What I saw there froze the blood in my veins. In the center stood a massive gallows, its weathered wood stained dark with what I hoped was merely years of exposure. But it was not the structure itself that caused my heart to stutter. Hanging from the crossbeam were 4 bodies, swaying gently in the breeze like macabre wind chimes. Their faces were hidden by black hoods, but their attires spoke of all walks of life. The sight struck me with a visceral horror, my mind reeling at the implications. I stumbled backward, bile rising in my throat. The cobblestones beneath my feet felt unsteady, as if the very ground might open up and swallow me whole. A raven's harsh caw pierced the silence, making me flinch. It perched atop the gallows, its beady eyes fixed upon me with an unsettling intelligence. For a moment, I could have sworn I saw a glimmer of crimson in its gaze. The sound of footsteps behind me made me whip around, only to come face to face with a dark figure cloaked in shadow. For a moment, we stood frozen in this grotesque tableau, the hanged bodies swaying behind me, this ominous presence before me. The air grew thicker and I found myself breathing heavier, unsure what to do next. Slowly, deliberately, the figure raised a hand. It pointed towards the castle atop the cliff.
"The false lord in the castle is responsible for the hangings,"
said the cloaked figure.
"Don't judge us for the sins of the Sun King."
He then walked away towards the ruins on the hill.
"Come, we were expecting you. You must have a tail and an empty stomach. We'll see to both."
The monastery clung to the cliff's edge as if reluctant to let go. Its once proud stone facade, now a tapestry of burnt stone and creeping ivy. Jagged windows, long unglazed, gaped like hollow eyes, revealing dark interiors shrouded in dust and shadow. Shacks were built here and there where the monks once grew wine, and among the ruins of the fortified house on the south side. Home now to a small group of destitute inhabitants. We made our way to a simple house within the small compound. The old man introduced himself as Friar Ernst and offered food and ale.
"It's been 40 years now since we've been derelict of our church, and our order fell into disrepair. Damned Treaty of Westphalia."
He looked at me as if expecting me to acquiesce.
"Well, it probably happened before you were born. That's when we Protestants were torn from our church, and things have only gotten worse since the damned French king kicked all the Huguenots out. But let's get down to business. I might be a man of God, but I'm no stranger to what's going on around here. Captain Friedrich does not bring lost souls down the river. So tell me, what is it that brings you to this desolate place?"
Well, I've been sent here by the Grand Elector of Brandenburg to do what I can to disrupt the French offensive against the Palatinate. From what I've been told, they have retreated back to Mainz after failing to take over Koblenz. We've passed through there but 2 days ago and it was all but rubble.
"So I've heard. It's not better down south. Mannheim is being sacked and emptied as we speak, and rumors are that the damned invaders intend to burn it to the ground, and they said it in the name of God. It is sacrilege. So, son, how can I help you? What is your intent?"
I have a task to carry out in Mainz, but Captain Friedrich said we can't travel further south by boat. From what we saw in Koblenz, I'm afraid he's right.
"He is indeed. The river is far too dangerous. I'm afraid you might not be able to get much further by land either. The Marquis of Bretesch has taken control of the territory between here and Mainz. He might be busy emptying the wine cellars and stuffing his face in Schönburg Castle. But his regiment has been busy pillaging the towns around here and going wherever they please. They've been careful to prevent word of what's happening here to get out, and the poor wretches you saw on the gallows are what happens if you but sneeze the wrong way."
I realized then that my journey would stall here. After some debate with a monk, he agreed to help me, but it would come at a price. While he would do everything in his power to find a way into Mainz, I was to help him in his efforts to undermine the Marquis, who had made life miserable to everyone here. He secured a small room for me in his makeshift home and assured me that he and those allied to his cause still controlled the land that the ruined monastery still held. Later that evening, I took leave of the monk and wandered into the abandoned church next to the monastery. I noticed the door ajar, a flicker of light spilling into the shadowy hall. Peering inside, I saw a lone woman kneeling on one of the few remaining benches, her silhouette framed by the soft glow of a lantern propped beside her. As my footsteps echoed in the silence, she turned to face me. Her beauty was striking. Her golden hair flowed like sunlit silk, cascading in soft waves that framed her delicate features and caught the flickering light. Her deep blue eyes sparkled with an ethereal quality, reflecting a depth of emotion that felt both inviting and mysterious. The perfect roundness of her face was softened by a gentle blush. Her gown, a relic of former splendor, clung to her with a whisper of defiance. Pale blue silk, worn thin in places, yet shimmering with an ethereal glow, as if it conspired with her beauty to deceive the eye. She was a vision, youthful, mesmerizing, and untouched by the truth of her waning fortunes. Her beauty, a weapon as sharp as any blade. "Pardon me, my lady, I didn't mean to intrude," I said, my voice barely a whisper.
"You did not. I saw you arrive earlier with Friar Ernst, but I do not recognize you."
"I'm no one really, just passing by."
"No one just passes by here. You're stuck here now."
"Is that so?"
"I'm sorry. It's just that things here are not what they seem. You should leave while you can, before you can't."
Her words struck a chord within me, a sense of truth washing over me. But I couldn't turn away now. I was ever inching towards my goal, to kill the Marshal of Mines.
"I'm Lady Lotta, and you are?"
"I'm a merchant from Maastricht. I'm heading south on official business."
"You don't seem like a merchant to me, but then again, nothing is as it seems anymore."
"Indeed," I agreed, feeling the weight of the moment.
"Well, Herr Merchant from Maastricht, I must go now. Stay safe, and don't wander into the south side of town. The French dragoons are not as friendly to strangers as the monks. I hope I'll see you again. We don't see many outlanders around here anymore."
It was not long before we met again and again. Unbeknownst to me, this would mark the beginning of a courtship like I had never experienced before. While Friar Ernst busied himself with plans to get me to Mines, he had me assist a small group of souls struggling to survive away from the watchful eyes of the French. Lottie remained elusive about her life and her identity, but each fleeting moment with her enchanted me, leaving me yearning for more. From what I could gather, she lived in the occupied castle atop the town with her sisters and other courtesans. They were tasked with keeping the castle running and serving the new lord, the Marquis of Bretèche. As the days turned to weeks, those stolen moments with Lady Lottie in the crumbling walls of the monastery began to weave themselves into my very being. The air was thick with the scent of the damp earth and the faint aroma of overgrown wilderness. A secret garden tucked away from the chaos outside. It was there, amidst the shadows and fading frescoes, that our laughter danced softly like whispers, a fragile thing in a world so full of despair. Each time our eyes met, I felt a spark, something igniting within me, as if the ruins were awakening feelings long buried beneath the weight of uncertainty. Her laughter was a melody that lingered in my mind, a contrast to the oppressive reality of our surroundings. Lottie spoke of dreams and distant horizons, her words painting pictures of freedom that made my chest swell with hope. We shared fleeting touches, her hand brushed against mine as we examined an ancient stone carving, or her shoulder nudging against mine as we hid in the shadows, wary of the world beyond. Each encounter wrapped me in a warmth that fended off the chill of our grim existence. How could I have known a courtship born among the echoes of the past would leave me so enchanted? In that dilapidated embrace, amidst crumbling stones and fading memories, I realized I was falling for her, and it thrilled me to the very core. Unfortunately, this was but a fleeting bliss, the happiest I had ever been. On the 5th of March of 1689, we learned that Heidelberg had been torched, and that it was likely that other occupied towns would likely follow suit. It was no secret that the French king had become frustrated with his meager gains, and was now getting ready to turn tail, as the Emperor of the Holy Alliance had ordered the Elector of Bavaria to redirect his feared forces from the Ottoman front to defend the now French-occupied lands along the Rhine. We devised a plan with Friar Ernst to try and stop the destruction of Overwesel, and enrolled Lottie to help us get into the castle. We figured that if we could take the Marquis as a hostage, then this would give us a chance to have him sign and seal orders for his regiment to retreat south, all at the same time giving me an opportunity to continue my journey towards Mainz. From what we had gathered, The Marquis was an old, unmarried man who spent his time engorging himself with all of the finest things the castle had to offer. To Lottie's despair, this included one of her sisters. She had managed to stay safe from him and was shielded by her oldest sister, Adelheid, who oversaw the castle's keep and servants. Our plan was that with the help of Lottie and Adelheid, we would conceal 4 able-bodied men, which included myself and Friar Ernst, in large wooden barrels which would be brought into the castle under the guise of provisions for the Marquis. With some luck and the help of a handful of servants allied to our cause, we thus hoped to be able to sneak into the Lord's chamber and hold him hostage long enough to enact a subterfuge before escaping through the gardens and down the vineyard adjacent to the Great Cliff. It was a perilous mission, but at this point, we had no better option. On the 9th of March, we learned that Mannheim had been leveled, so we knew time was running out. That same day, we decided to carry out our plans. As our hearts raced in anticipation, the barrels finally stood ready, each one a silent sentinel of our shared fate. With Lottie and Adelheid guiding the way, we waited for the cover of dusk, when shadows draped over the town. It was then that our allies, feigning a casual demeanor, propped the barrels on a large hand chariot and began to escort the barrels toward the castle, a seemingly innocuous delivery of provisions heading for the Marquis's lavish feasts. Inside, we huddled silently, the wooden walls pressing in on us, muffling the sound of our breaths. The journey felt endless, but eventually, we felt the jarring bumps subside as we were carted through the castle gates. The muffled voices of the servants and the distant laughter of nobles echoed above us, a stark reminder of the turmoil that lay just beyond our wooden prison. Once the barrels were unloaded, the servants discreetly carried us into a dim-lit storage room. The moment to act was now, and we readied ourselves for the next phase of our plan. The air crackled with promise as we pushed the tops of the barrels and emerged into the flickering half-light. Our hearts pounding with the danger that awaited us. It was only a matter of time before we confronted the Lord. The reckoning was at hand, and our destiny hung in the balance. We waited until the nightly feast was all but over and most had retreated to their chambers. For the servants, we only had to cross the back court between the storage and the main tower, ascend 2 flights of stairs, and we would reach the Marquis's lodgings, where we would hide until he retired from the feast. We had meticulously plotted our entry, every step choreographed in a dance of secrecy and stealth, and yet, hope was a fragile thing in moments like these, easily trampled underfoot by the weight of reality. As we slipped through a narrow door concealed behind creeping ivy, our hearts pounded in unison, a grim rhythm that spoke of both fear and purpose. The dimly lit corridor beckoned, its walls adorned with opulent tapestries depicting scenes of conquest and revelry, a stark reminder of the disparity between the nobles and the wretched. We pressed forward, each footfall increasing our stress, each breath a reminder of our own mortality. As we rounded a corner leading to the staircase, the sounds of raucous laughter reached our ears, punctuating the tense stillness with a jarring contrast. The small hall just to the right of the stairs was a tableau of excess, where a small contingent, including the Marquis himself, reveled unabashedly within the heart of their stronghold. The sight of him, flushed with delight and surrounded by sycophants, ignited a simmering frustration within the party, a bitter cocktail of anger and despair. There we stood, caught between the entry to the hall and the staircase. Our hearts sank. Our plan was starting to sour. The Marquis appeared utterly unmoved by the suffering beyond his gilded walls, lost in the oblivion that only wealth and arrogance could provide. It was a cruel twist of fate that the man we sought to confront was so near yet so far from grasp.
Now what?
Whispered Ernst, the unsteady leader of our makeshift rebellion, the light of hope dimming further in his eyes. It was an unspoken dread that hung heavy in the air, a desperate plea for purpose in a moment suddenly unraveled. A fight felt inevitable, yet the weight of failure loomed larger still. In a moment of reckless abandon, driven by the haze of indignation, we surged into the chamber, a cacophony of clattering armor and whispered curses, shattering the veneer of merriment. Laughter faltered, eyes widened in confusion, and a sense of terror rippled through the gathered nobles. The Marquis, taken aback, drew himself upright, the jovial glow of his countenance tarnished by the intrusion.
"Who goes there? Who dares interrupt my feast?"
he demanded, his voice dripping with venomous disdain. It was not just a question, it was a declaration. The way his gaze flickered was as if he hadn't considered for an instant that he could be challenged, that someone would dare repay arrogance with defiance. Without warning, chaos erupted. Flashes of steel ignited the room, a desperate dance of survival. As we fought, despair clawed at us, a grim reminder that this battle was not just against the Marquis and his entourage, but against the stark reality of war and the impending destruction of Oberwesel. The clash of metal rang through the air, punctuated by cries of fury and fear. Each movement felt like a futile attempt to carve a piece of justice out of the suffocating grip of despair. But as the minutes stretched into a nightmarish cascade of blows and parries, it became painfully clear that this reckless, desperate battle was lost. We were subdued. Of the fighting men, only Ernst and I remained. Thankfully, Lottie and Adelheid had not joined the failed endeavor and were nowhere to be seen. The Marquis questioned us and made a show of his debauchery. After what seemed like hours of humiliation and torture, we were cast into the castle prison. The prison was a circular tower 5 stories high, with a large dark well in the middle. Time had carved its claws into the stone walls, and whispered tales of despair hung heavy in the air. At first, the well appeared like any ordinary pit, a cold, foreboding hole in the ground, but it wasn't a mere pit. It was a labyrinth of suffering, stretching far beneath the surface. After a day or so, as we recovered from our injuries, we were forced by hunger to descend. We found ourselves plunged into a nightmare unfathomable. There were several levels and chambers beneath the earth, each more harrowing than the last. On the first level, we came across 2 more prisoners, Ursula and Lenny. Ursula was a maiden whose figure was emaciated yet grotesquely adorned with the remnants of luxuries denied. She stared through hollow eyes, her hands outstretched as if pleading for sustenance that would never come. We too could feel her insatiable hunger gnawing at our sides. We tried talking with her, but she was not able to tell us how long she had been there, or the last time she ate. Only that from time to time her sister Adelheid managed to sneak into the prison and lower down some food. Next to her was Lenny. She was strewn on the floor and had an even more wretched appearance. Half naked and with barely any life left, the only words we could get out from her were a plea to let her be and for us to be gone, that we should not witness more her never-ending suffering. Beneath them on the second level lay the haunting presence of yet another soul, Greta, a maiden draped in tattered riches, her once glistening jewels tarnished with sweat and grime. Her anguish echoed through the gloom. She told us that she only had managed to survive on the meager scrapes that Adelheid would provide. She shared some of her provisions with us. We tried talking with her, but her mind was gone, and her only focus was amassing trinkets and toys in a corner, as if to forget the prison in which she had been thrust in. We understood by her condition and the state of her treasures that the prisoner maidens had been here for a long time, longer than the time of the Marquis at the castle, and that somehow Adelheid had allowed their captivity thus to perdure. This thought harrowed us, as we could not comprehend how the fates of these sisters could be so. I had at present a terrible thought. What of lovely Lottie? What was her fate and role in all of this? On the third level and root of the well, deep within the stinking earth, were confined 2 more maidens, Hedda, whose eyes blazed like embers, and Eliza, a spectre of despair. Hedda unleashed a torrent of rage upon us, the bitterness of feelings long suppressed clawing at her throat. She told us how the proud Adelheid had conspired with Eliza and Lottie to hide their sisters in the dungeon, to shield them from the sin of men. Here, no man would defile them, no suitor would strip their chastity from them. But little by little, their hiding place went from refuge to living hell. Eliza had soon become jealous of Lottie and Adelheid, for they were gifted with the graces of the castle above, while she was tasked to care for those below. A sisterly quarrel ensued, and their protectors became their jailers. The well was now all they knew. They could not tell us how long they had been here, since they had lost all sense of time. I could hardly believe this appalling tale and thought it impossible that Lottie was indeed a perpetrator of this most terrible sin. After some time, we went up to the ground floor again, having procured just enough food from the sisters to restore us to a slightly better state. Here, the Marquis met us and told us even more of the gruesome tale. He recounted how upon his arrival to Schönburg Castle, Adelheid had opened the gates for his entourage and made all pleasures imaginable available to them, all save one, that of Lottie herself. He revealed how Adelheid ruled the castle and his men in his stead, as if he were but another servant in her wake. He had decided to let her be as he was well taken care of, but now, in a moment of lucidity, he saw the perverseness of the maidens and wished nothing more than to get rid of their curse. He would soon leave and be done with this dreadful place. He was, after all, still lord of the castle and of his men. He told us how Lottie danced amid shadows, her eyes alluring yet devoid of warmth, how all those who encountered her charms were consumed by desires they could never grasp, how her desperate reach for connection mirrored their own, yet all she offered was emptiness, an endless cycle of craving lost to the abyss. This revelation broke my heart, and I was now witness of my own failings and misery. Outside the prison tower, Adelheid loomed like a malevolent giant, her now irritated face whispering secrets long lost and twisted. Our true captors, grotesque embodiments of humanity's worst flaws, were prowling the castle with insatiable hunger. Lottie lured the weak with promises of pleasure, seducing them into submission, while Adelheid reveled in the illusion of dominance, raising spirits only to dash them against the cold stone walls of reality. The castle thrived on their balance, an insidious symbiosis that rendered any form of control over them a futile dream. Yet within the fetid gloom, an idea was born from desperation. Friar Ernst, with his furrowed brow and heavy heart, spoke in hushed tones to the Marquis.
You are wrong about this. O great lord, even your power pales in the shadow of Adelheid's arrogance. She thinks herself capable of securing your control over this realm, but how could she ever hope to own you?
The words dripped like honey, sweet yet laced with venom, and as the Marquis's eyes gleamed with hunger, they caught the scent of discord.
The well, the fountain of their power, could be their undoing. Destroy it, and the castle will crumble with it.
In his heart, the Marquis felt the weight of his own anger, as biting as the putrid air around him. The phase was set, the players poised, and the two forces danced perilously close to conflict. The Marquis and Adelheid, intoxicated by their mutual disdain, began to clash with an intensity that shook the very walls of the castle. Arguments reverberated through the stony walls like the rumble of thunder, feeding on the chaos that erupted in the pursuit of supremacy. The castle servants clashed with the French soldiers, and the Marquis decided to be rid of this place. Explosives were brought into the well, and a promise to kill all the maidens was made. Lottie and Adelheid were thrown violently into the well. Lottie was wounded, and within the midst of the despair, gave us the key to our escape. In the second chamber, she had secretly enlarged the vent. With a bit of effort, it could be made a narrow passage to escape through. I started digging through it, and little by little made the vent large enough for us to pass through. But our time was limited as a fire started roaring above us. The castle was aflame. As we slowly crawled through the vent, with a shuddering roar, the well imploded under the weight of the conflict upstairs, sending a shock wave rippling through the castle's haughty facade. Walls buckled, and the air filled a scent of decay and desperation. There was no going back. I could no longer hear my companions behind me. The passage had collapsed. They had been buried within it. I struggled to keep going, but could see a faint light up ahead. I felt a pang of horror, realizing the vast cost of this rebellion. I had won my freedom, but the victory came at a grievous price. Gasping amidst the chaos, only I would emerge, thrust into the wretchedness of the expanse of a world laid aflame. I was cast amid the rubble, was lost to the echoes of silence. In the end, it's the survivor that bears the heaviest burden. So, I took up the quill, driven not by hope, but by a grim sense of obligation, to etch this tale of desperation, of betrayal and misery. The castle was no more, absorbed into the earth's disdain. Yet the tale persisted, a whisper amidst the ruins of human folly, a mournful echo of the endless conflict between human nature and self-destruction. With these strokes, I hope to share the tale of the downfall of the 7 virgins of Schönburg, a stark reminder that in the ruthless game of survival, even the mightiest can fall victim to their own vices. Legends fade, but some never die. They cling to the stones, to the river, to the stories we whisper when the lights go low. The 7 virgins of Schönburg Castle may be long gone, but their tale lives on, in the rocks that jut from the Rhine River, and now with you. What did you think of the story? If you liked it, let me know, leave a review, and make sure to follow Lore and Crime, because this is just the beginning. New episodes will be coming out regularly. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep your eyes open and your ears to the past, because some things never stay buried.